At the beginning of the movie, we see a woman named Adele getting ready and admiring her beauty. Just then, her husband Sodraj enters the room. Adele says, "Look how beautiful your wife is." Sodrajat responds, "Yes, you are beautiful." Then, without warning, he slits her throat, ending her life. In the next scene, strangely, Adele is still alive, tied up in an unfamiliar place. Sodrajat is there as well, accompanied by a shaman and his followers. Adele exclaims, "What are you doing?" "I am your wife, Adele." Sodrajat yells, "Adele is dead. You are Lampir," Adele pleads. "I swear I am truly Adele, your wife." The shaman interrupts, "Do not listen to this demon. Finish her," Adele says. "Do you really have the heart to burn your beautiful wife?" But Sodraj ignores her and sets her on fire. Suddenly, Adele screams, "You fool! You don't deserve a beautiful woman like me. My beauty is eternal. I can do anything with it, even buy a human soul." At that moment, the shaman's followers turn against him and Sodrajat, stabbing them to death. Watching the scene unfold, Adele laughs maniacally. The scene then cuts to Wendy, who jolts awake from her sleep. We then see that Wendy has a scratch mark on her back. Just then, her fiancé Anga calls her. Then we see Anga is on the phone, informing someone that his wedding is in 2 months. At that moment, Wendy arrives, gets into the car, and notices a figure inside her house. Concerned, Anga asks if she's okay, then notices the scratch marks on her neck and asks, "Did you scratch your neck again?" Wendy replies, "I think so. No worries. They can cover it with makeup." Next, they arrive at a studio for a photo shoot. However, during the shoot, Anga is busy on his phone with office work, which irritates Wendy. She gets up, snatches his phone, and complains that their wedding is in 2 weeks. Can he prioritize it just once? Outside the studio, we see Agnes and Nanda. As Nanda scrolls through her phone, she comes across a reel about an unsolved case from their college. Curious, she mentions it to Agnes. Agnes ignores it and instead asks, "Does my face look dull?" Nanda reassures her, "You're pretty," then changes the subject. "Wasn't Raka your classmate?" "He is one of the victim in this case." Agnes says, "Yeah, but we were never close," and asks again, "Are you sure I look good?" Annoyed, Nanda asks, "Why are you so insecure?" Just then, Roby and the others finish the photo shoot and step outside. However, Anga is still busy and gets another call. Wendy explains, Anga wants to finish all his work before the wedding so he can focus on the wedding. But the result is that now I have to handle all the arrangements. Nanda then tells Wendy about the unresolved case, saying, "It's been 10 years that Raka, Agnes's classmate, and his 5 friends disappeared, and they are still missing." Agnes says, "I pray they are found soon." Nanda scoffs, "It's been 10 years. They must be dead." Wendy replies, "Who knows? Miracles happen." Roby then shows the photographs to Agnes, who, after looking the photographs, stares at Wendy strangely and says, "Wendy, such a pretty frown." Later, Wendy goes to return the dress she borrowed from her friend Laura's store for the photo shoot. She asks if she can use the washroom. As she walks in, she hears a noise and notices a woman standing with her back turned. Slowly, the woman begins to turn around. Just then, an employee switches on the lights and woman vanishes. Later, Wendy comes out and tells Laura's that she's leaving. As she steps out, one of Laura's employees comments, "Wendy is such a beautiful woman, but her hair is falling out. And that too gray hair." She then holds up a clump of gray hair she found stuck to the dress Wendy rented. Laura's looks at them confused. The scene cuts to Anga asking Wendy if she's okay. He asks, "Are you having those dreams again?" Wendy replies, "I don't know how to explain, but the dreams feel so real. And it's not just the dreams. I feel like someone is following me. A terrifying figure, long hair, sharp nails. And it's not human." Anga reassures her that she is probably exhausted with all the wedding preparations. He says, once he finishes his projects, they'll split the burden. Then we see that earlier, Agnes had suggested a trip and told everyone about a villa owned by her friend, Lydia. She explained that Lydia didn't use it since she lived abroad and shared pictures of the villa with everyone. They all loved the idea. Anga then suggested to Roby that they could do another pre-wedding shoot there. Everyone tried to convince Wendy, but she refused. Later, Agnes meets a man named Rizky, who works at an old age home. He asks, "How did you find me?" Agnes smirks, "You picked a great place to hide from debt collectors." Rizky replies, "I am not hiding. I am repenting. I quit gambling and drugs. I want to be a better person. Agnes tells him about the upcoming trip with her friends and invites him to join, saying, I know you've wronged them in the past, but we can put it behind us now. Risky sighs. I never meant to deceive anyone. I just needed money. He then apologizes to Agnes for whatever happened between them. I was drunk and lost control. Agnes brushes it off, saying, I've already forgotten it, but staying away from us isn't the solution. She asks for his phone and says, everyone misses you. Later, while Rizky is feeding an elderly man, he receives images of the villa on his phone, and a smile spreads across his face. Later that night, while relaxing in the bathtub, Wendy finishes a call about the wedding and sets her phone aside. Suddenly, the eerie entity appears again, haunting her. Terrified, she panics, her breath quickening as fear takes over. She quickly calls her friends to confirm that she is in for the vacation. The next day, they all set out on their trip. Robbie looks at Rizky angrily. Rizky insists that he has changed. Robbie turns to Nanda and asks, did you invite him? Nanda responds, your girlfriend Agnes did. Robbie then reminds everyone that Rizky had deceived them out of tens of millions. Rizky defends himself, saying, I didn't do it on purpose. I will pay it back. Meanwhile, Anga asks Wendy, what made you change your mind about this vacation? Wendy replies, you were right. All the wedding preparations have stressed me out. They've even made me hallucinate. Anga assures her she'll feel better after the trip. Soon, they arrive at the villa and everyone loves it. Curious, Nanda asks Rizky, why are you carrying such a big bag? We're only staying for 2 days. Robbie suddenly pushes Rizky aside and warns him, everyone else might have accepted you, but I haven't. If you mess with Agnes, I won't let you off easily. As they enter the house, they are all mesmerized by its interior and antiques. Just then, Nanda comes across a portrait of Adele and asks Agnes about it. Agnes explains that Adele was Lydia's ancestor, the most beautiful woman of her time. Nanda agrees. Meanwhile, Robbie is seen taking pictures of the surroundings when he suddenly notices Adele in the window, but she vanishes when he looks directly. Later, they are seen chatting, eating, and enjoying themselves. As Wendy passes by Adele's painting, she stops and freezes, staring at it. Nanda approaches and reminds her that everyone is waiting. The next day, Anga realizes there is no signal. Robbie wonders why Wendy is taking so long, so Agnes goes inside to check on her. As she enters, she is stunned to see Wendy dressed in a bridal gown. Mesmerized, she remarks, you look even prettier now than in the photo. The photo shoot begins, but Agnes feels insecure watching Wendy. She tells Nanda she's going to the washroom. Just then, Anga pulls out a gun, startling everyone. Wendy questions why he brought it. He explains that it belonged to his father, and he brought it for the photo shoot. Robbie asks if it's loaded, to which Anga replies, I don't know, seems empty. Meanwhile, Rizky suddenly announces he needs to use the restroom and rushes inside. Once there, he grabs his large bag and begins stealing valuable antiques from the villa. While looting, he stumbles and accidentally discovers a secret chamber. He pushes it open and steps inside, and we see Lampir's hand in the darkness. He spots Lampir, but she vanishes instantly. His eyes then land on a rolled-up parchment. Thinking it's a treasure map, he unrolls it, only to find a chilling message. There is no way back. Only one will leave. The rest will be her meal. Terrified, he drops his phone. As he picks it up, suddenly Lampir appears before him. He bolts out of the chamber, leaving his phone behind. Outside, it suddenly starts raining, prompting everyone to pack up and rush back inside. As they enter, a panicked Rizky bumps into them and urgently says, something is wrong here. We need to leave immediately. Robbie asks if he has used drugs and opens his bag, causing antiques to spill out. Rizky yells, I can explain this. Meanwhile, Nanda goes to the washroom, and upon seeing something terrifying, she screams in fear. It is then revealed that Agnes has hanged herself, exactly as depicted on the scroll. Seeing Agnes dead, Robbie is devastated. Anga tries to call the police, but there is no signal. Rizky rushes to Anga, insisting, we have to leave. Suddenly, Robbie accuses Rizky. Did you kill Agnes? He yells. You've liked her for a long time. You almost raped her once, and now you killed her because she caught you stealing. Enraged, He attacks Rizky and starts beating him. Anga tries to pull him away, and Rizky shouts, "I didn't kill her!" Roby then accuses Anga and Wendy of using the vacation to cover up Agnes's murder. Wendy snaps. "What do you mean?" Robbie screams back. "Then who killed Agnes?" And everyone starts shouting at each other until Nanda suddenly screams, "Stop!" Roby growls, "Why should I stop?" and lunges at Nanda. In a panic, Rizky grabs a gun and points it at Roby. Roby steps back, grabs the gun, presses it to his forehead, and challenges, "Shoot me!" Just then, Anga punches Roby, snatches the gun, and fires a shot into the ceiling. He commands everyone to calm down and explains Roby that his behavior is causing harm to everyone. The scene cuts to everyone carrying Agnes's body to the car. But then they notice something bizarre. The villa no longer looks the same. It now appears abandoned, as if it has been in ruins for thousands of years. Panicked, they try to escape. No matter which direction they take, they always end up back in front of the villa. Frustrated and terrified, they fail to comprehend what's happening. Anga attempts to escape once more, but this time, Lampir suddenly appears in front of the car, causing them to crash into a tree. The vehicle breaks down completely. Just as the scroll had warned, there is no way back. With no other option, they return to the villa. Roby turns to Rizky and asks, "You came here to steal, right?" Rizky snaps back, "Yes, I came to steal. I'm a cheater, a fraud, trash, useless, but I am not a murderer. I didn't kill Agnes. There's something you all need to see." He then leads them to a hidden chamber, but Nanda, too terrified, refuses to enter and stays outside alone. Inside, a foul stench fills the air. Rizky shows them the scroll and says, "Everything happening to us is already written here." The group peers at it closely as Wendy reads aloud, "There is no way back. Only one will leave. The rest will be her meal." Anga dismisses it as nonsense. He argues, "This is just some psychopath's sick game to make us kill each other." Rizky counters, "With everything we're experiencing, can you really say that?" Rizky questions, "Who would benefit from our deaths?" Just then, Wendy says, "Lampir, she's a demon who takes human form." Rizky asks, "How do you know that?" Wendy replies, "Because I've seen this place before in my dreams." She turns to Anga, "I told you about this place." Anga cuts her off, saying, "I told you that was just a dream. There's nothing real about this scroll. Tomorrow we'll return home safe and sound." He then sets the scroll on fire, dismissing it as nonsense. Meanwhile, outside, Nanda remains alone when she suddenly spots Lampir. The figure vanishes instantly. At that moment, she notices a piece of paper on the floor. She picks it up, and upon seeing it, fear grips her. She quickly hides it in her pocket. Just then, the door slams shut. She screams for help. Suddenly, she hears Agnes's voice. Frantically, she lights her lighter, and a door creaks open. Agnes's voice continues calling her name. Slowly, Nanda moves toward the door. Behind her, Lampir whispers, "Come here, Nanda." Terrified, she turns, but there's no one there. Then, without warning, Lampir attacks her. Nanda screams in terror. The others hear her and rush to find her. As they search, Wendy pushes open a door and glances around. That's when she notices blood seeping from beneath another door. Hesitantly, she opens it, only to find Lampir feasting on Nanda's lifeless body, laughing maniacally, just as the scroll had foretold. Wendy screams in horror and the door slams shut. Hearing Wendy scream, Rizky runs to check on her. He notices blood seeping from under the door and quickly opens it, only to find Nanda's lifeless body. Shocked, he vomits. The others arrive and are horrified to see that Nanda has been murdered. Suddenly, Nanda's body begins floating in the air, and she bursts into maniacal laughter. She says, "You are all going to die. I will skin you and nibble your flesh away until there is nothing left." She laughs again before collapsing lifelessly. Seeing this, everyone is terrified and attempts to leave the villa, but the doors slam shut. Wendy, crying, says, "The demon will not let us leave." Later, they cover Nanda's body with a white cloth. Wendy then has a vision of Lampir, recalling where she had seen her before. Trembling, she says, "She's the same person." Seeing Wendy in distress, Anga tries to comfort her, saying, "We'll escape in the morning. We'll be safe." Hearing this, Rizky suddenly starts laughing hysterically. "Even after everything, you still don't get it? Everything written on the scroll was real." Anga scoffs. "I don't want to hear about that stupid scroll." Rizky snaps back. "2 of our friends are dead. Still, you don't believe it?" Just then, Wendy screams, "This is real. We are all trapped here. Roby speaks up. If the scroll is true, only one of us will make it out alive. He stands up and repeats the words to Wendy. Anga, frustrated, yells, I told you, that stupid scroll is not real. He immediately pulls out his gun, but Wendy stops him. Meanwhile, Robbie steps back, secretly picking up a stone and hiding it in his pocket. Later that night, as everyone sleeps, Lampir calls out Risky's name in Agnes's voice. Risky sees Agnes upstairs, her body missing from where it was. Nervously, he follows her. Just as he hesitates, about to turn back, she calls his name again, trying to seduce him from behind a curtain. A hand emerges, beckoning him forward. Then we see that it is Lampir, behind the curtain. As Risky pulls back the curtain, there is no one behind it. Suddenly, Lampir appears behind him and attacks, forcing him underwater in a bathtub. Risky manages to crawl out of the tub and he sees Roby standing there. Risky pleads for help, but instead of helping, Robbie brutally strikes him with the stone, again and again, until he is dead. Roby then screams. Hearing the noise, Wendy and Anga rush upstairs. Anga raises his gun at Roby, but Roby, crying, lies. I didn't do anything. Lampir killed him. They believe him and Anga says, if Lampir doesn't want to let us get out of here, let's just force her. Wendy asks, what do you mean? He suggests to burn the villa. Roby counters, if we burn this villa, we are all going to die here. Anga says, she won't let her space burnt down. She has only two choices, to let us go or to let us burn this villa. Wendy says, or she can kill us all. Anga replies, at least we die fighting. Then, they all prepare to set the villa on fire by gathering clothes and wooden items in one place. Anga lights a lighter, but just then, Roby steals Anga's gun and tries to shoot Anga. Wendy attempts to stop him, but he knocks her unconscious. An intense fight breaks out between Anga and Roby, causing the gun to fall next to Wendy. Roby overpowers Anga and begins strangling him with a cloth. Just then, Wendy aims the gun at Roby, only to realize it's empty. Anga pushes Roby back, but Roby yells, can't you both just die for me? Anga attacks him, and in desperation, Wendy grabs a knife. Meanwhile, Robbie slams Anga's head against the wall, and then stabs him in the chest with a wooden stake. Before Wendy can save Agnes, he urges her to run. As Robbie gets up, Anga grabs his leg, giving Wendy a chance to escape upstairs. Roby kicks Anga away and chases after her. Wendy locks herself in a room and hides under the bed. Outside, Roby taunts her, open the door. If you do, I'll kill you quickly. If you don't, I'll make you suffer for a long time. He pounds on the door until he finally forces it open. Searching the room, he checks the wardrobe before noticing the hem of Wendy's gown peeking out from under the bed. He then lies down on the bed and speaks softly. You still think I'm the bad guy? A killer? Heartless? I'm not. I just want to live. Just then, Roby drags Wendy out and begins strangling her, but suddenly, Lampir arrives. Terrified, Roby stumbles out of the room. In that moment, Anga ambushes him from behind. He beats Robbie to death with the same stone, smashing his face beyond recognition. Anga then approaches Wendy and says, everything will be over soon. But just then, Lampir's maniacal laughter echoes through the air as she heads toward them. Hearing the laughter, Wendy says, she's coming. I don't want to die. Anga shouts, go away, you evil spirit. He hugs Wendy and murmurs, if we have to die, we will die together. Just then, Lampir enters the room, but suddenly steps back. In a shocking twist, we see that Wendy has stabbed Anga in the heart, the knife piercing through his chest. Wendy says, I just want to live, Anga. Anga collapses to the floor. Later, a door creaks open. Wendy is seen with the lifeless bodies of her 5 friends. She flicks open a lighter, but just then, something in Nanda's pocket catches her eye. Reaching for it, she pulls out a photograph. As she stares at it, memories resurface. Nanda once told her about a group of friends who mysteriously disappeared 10 years ago, including Agnes's friend, Raka. Her breath hitches upon recognizing Agnes in the photograph. She looks back at the bodies, and Agnes's body is missing. Just then, Wendy hears maniacal laughter. At that moment, Agnes appears clapping, alive. Terrified, Wendy asks, what is the meaning of this? Agnes replies, you're still so pretty. Wendy immediately turns to flee, but the door slams shut. She stumbles. Agnes then drags her behind with her powers. Wendy asks, what do you want? "Who are you?" Agnes, her voice haunting, says, "You already know," and starts laughing. She licks her face, then strangle her, and scene cuts to black. Later, we see Wendy tied up. She regains consciousness. Agnes asks, "Are you awake?" Wendy replies, "You're not Agnes. The people who went missing 10 years ago, they came to this villa and went through the same thing." She then demands, "Where is the real Agnes?" Agnes, who is actually Lampir, says, "Agnes was here. Adele was here too." She chuckles darkly. Wendy replies, "You're a demon, one that mimics humans. Lampir, you deliberately lured the 5 of us here to be your sacrifices. You came into my dreams, revealing your true self. Adele, she was just another victim, but me, you had your eye on me from the very beginning." "That scroll, what does it mean?" Lampir says. "There is nothing more enjoyable than watching you all tear each other apart." Wendy realizes Anga was right. This was just a psychopath's game. She asks, "What do you want?" Lampir says, "Isn't it obvious?" Wendy's questions, "All this, just for beauty?" Lampir expression darkens. "Someone like you, born beautiful, will never understand. With beauty, you can have anything. With beauty, you can do anything," and then starts crying. Wendy laughs and replies, "Nothing lasts in this world, not even beauty." Lampir agrees. She says, "That's why I need a new body," and laughs hauntingly. She continues, "You were right about me except for one thing. I am not a demon mimicking a human. I am a human mimicking a demon." She then steps back in the darkness and then emerges, her true form revealed. A horrifying demon crawling toward Wendy. She says, "We will become one in a moment, Wendy." Wendy's body suddenly freezes. Then, in the most horrifying moment, Lampir forces its way into Wendy's body through her vagina. Wendy convulses violently then. Suddenly, she goes still and collapses. After a while, she breaks free from her restraints and sits up, running her hands over her now youthful, flawless body. A satisfied smile spreads across her lips. She then strikes the same pose Wendy had earlier and clicks a picture and admires her beauty. The scene shifts. The once decaying villa is now restored to its former glory. Wendy, or rather Lampir, descends the staircase, reveling in her newfound beauty. She reaches a particular spot and pauses. The light shifts eerily. She then laughs maniacally. The lights then comes back to normal, and with a final smirk, she steps out of the villa, marking the end of the movie. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the chills, hit that like button, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a scare. Until next time, stay spooky.